Hi everyone, welcome to the next video in the series about getting into space. This time it's the Atlas family of rockets. Atlas has been one of the most successful rocket series ever produced. Since the first flight of an Atlas rocket there have been over 500 launches, split between two launch sites, the Vandenberg Air Force Base on the west coast of the USA and the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station on the east coast. Now obviously I'm not going to cover each and every launch, and to further complicate things over such a long operating life, changes have naturally been made and upgrades introduced. Instead, what we'll do is look at the series as a whole, breaking down the significant changes from version to version and identifying the key missions each version launched. The Atlas missile was developed for the US Army and in its day was the most powerful missile the US had built. The first version of Atlas to be developed for satellite launch was the Atlas D, and until the introduction of the Atlas II in 1991 there were countless variants of the Atlas D, so we won't be getting bogged down in the minor designation changes in this video. The name Atlas was used to reflect the Greek Titan of the same name and the rocket's status as the most powerful ever built at the time of construction. The Atlas D was the most like the original ballistic missile version and carried some of its flaws into its final design. The rocket stood approximately 28.7 metres tall and produced around 1,517 kilonewtons of thrust. This means it could put a payload of up to 1,360 kilograms into orbit around the Earth. The Atlas D used an unusual stage and a half system of firing. What this means is that at a certain point in the launch, after the rocket is off the ground and lighter from having burned some fuel, the two side engines would detach and fall back to Earth, leaving the main body of the rocket and the centre engine to carry on into space. Normally, with other rockets, whole sections detach when a fuel tank is empty, and then the next section starts with new engines to carry on with the flight. One reason for this stage and a half approach was the difficulty in reliably starting a second set of engines in flight. If you remember, the Atlas was originally designed as a missile, and you can't really have those falling short of their targets due to unreliability. The stage and a half was also somewhat simpler, not needing extra fuel tanks, engines, control systems and plumbing to be duplicated onto the second stage. Whilst we're on the subject of difficulties, the Atlas was a very difficult rocket to handle. Its construction, as with most rockets, featured fuel tanks that formed the outer skin of the rocket. To save weight, however, very thin steel was used, so much so that the tanks had to be kept pressurised at all times, as they would crumple under their own weight if empty and depressurised. These problems are more a symptom of the era of development and the level of technology available at the time, and should not detract from the record of a very capable launch vehicle. In order to place heavier payloads into space, the Atlas D could be fitted with a second stage, and throughout its life featured prominently the Agena second stage and later the Centaur second stage, a variant of which is still in use today on the current Atlas V version of the rocket. So let's take a look at some of the significant missions launched on those early Atlas rockets. The first flight of a satellite carrying Atlas came in December 1958, when an Atlas B launched the SCORE satellite. Into the 1960s, we see the first manned orbital mission for the United States. John Glenn launched in his capsule Friendship 7 atop an Atlas D variant and was followed in the years to come by the remaining Mercury 7 crews, Scott Carpenter aboard Aurora 7 in May 1962, Walter Schirra Jr. aboard Sigma 7 in October 1962, and finally Gordon Cooper aboard Faith 7 in May 1963, bringing to an end the Mercury manned program. Some notable unmanned missions were also launched on Atlas D variants. In December 1962, Mariner 2 was sent on a flyby of Venus. Various Ranger space probes were sent to study the Moon between 1961 and 1965. Into the 1970s, and Atlas D variants would launch further exploration missions, with both Pioneers 10 and 11 being launched to study Jupiter and Saturn respectively. Up until its replacement by the Atlas G variant in 1984, the Atlas D and its predecessors flew somewhere in the region of 150 successful missions. This high number can in part be attributed to the rocket's origins in military hardware. Upon the retirement from active service, many missiles were repurposed for use in space launches, and also the powerful and reliable design gave it great staying power, meaning that the last Atlas rocket that was derived from a missile was actually launched in the mid-1990s. In the next video, we'll take a look at the successors, the Atlas G, the Atlas I and the Atlas II, and their career through the 1990s and early 2000s. That's about it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.